Okay, welcome folks. You're here with John Souglides again. Wonderful to be here with you on this Wednesday. We've got another amazing guest today, Gronwen de Klerk. She's from South Africa. Her website is www.ilovefood.co.za. Very important topic and very important subject matter. So we're going to hear about her life story, her book, advice she has for people. It's really, I've read her book. It's absolutely phenomenal. So let's get to Bronwyn. Bronwyn, hi, how are you?
Hi, John. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we're live on both our radio stations, WeRaw.ws and Awake Radio in the UK. So please, let's get started. Thank you so much for the book that you sent me. Absolutely loved it.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Pleasure. I feel it's so important, your messages, your journey, because so many people have pretty much gone through the same road as you. A lot of them reach out, some of them don't, and then they sit with all this, what they believe is such a problem in their life, and it really isn't. And you portrayed it so beautifully in your book, I Love Food. So please, let's get to it. For the listeners, how did you get started? How was your upbringing regarding, it's obviously your book is I Love Food, so it's regarding food, and your experiences and any philosophies that you have, because this is definitely a problem that parents, people themselves, even adults face in day-to-day life. So please, let's just get straight to it.
Great, thank you. Well, my eating disorder started in my teenage years. I became very conscious of my body and my weight. And I started dieting at a very young age. And we also moved towns, so I wasn't very self-confident when it came to making new friends. So I've started focusing a lot on my weight and my eating. And I think that often happens with young girls, is that food and eating becomes a distraction from the other issues and problems that they're facing. And I would say through my high school years, my weight went up and down, and I became bulimic. And it wasn't until the end of school that I sort of opened up to my mom that I had the eating disorder and that I'd been battling with it for a long time. And I went to various people for help, and I'd say, like, there's not one particular thing that I can say helped me overcome it. It was a number of things that I learned. And leaving school, we moved to another town again, and that it led me to a lot of because I didn't have a lot of friends at the new place that we moved to. I was forced to face myself and look deeper into why I was using food to distract myself from things. And at the same time, I stopped dieting, and I put on quite a lot of weight. I probably put on about 20 kilograms. But the key for me was just learning to love myself irrespective of my eating and my body. And through that, through that self-love, I slowly started to gain control of my eating.
And that's sorry to interrupt you there, Bron, but it's so important what you just said about the self-love aspect, because, I mean, even myself, through the years counseling people, the minute that there's that lack of element of self-love, it definitely affects us in so many ways.
Definitely. And, you know, whether it's, you act it out, or your lack of love for yourself, you might play it out through smoking or drinking, or, we each have our different vices or ways that we avoid facing the fact that we just don't love ourselves. And it's learning to love yourself unconditionally, especially when it comes to women and our weight. Say, well, I will love myself once I've lost 10 kilograms, once I've lost 15 kilograms, then I'm worthy of being loved. But you lose those 15 kilograms, but you don't love yourself anymore.
It's amazing. I'm just going to step in there. Yes. What you said is so important, because people don't realize that they're in that freight train mode. I'll classify it as a freight train mode, where they don't stop and say, I'm actually putting myself down. I'm discrediting myself, and it all goes down to conditioning of how society expects us to look or feel or be.
Yeah.
Because I know you spoke about
these images.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like you said in your book about the images and about how society, well, how my understanding of how you put it was how society creates us the perfect body. And I mean, I've counseled people that have got absolutely phenomenal men and women body,
Yes.
they're bodybuilders, and they're very, very depressed, even though they look like this goddess. Um, and it's, if we don't clear the issues, it's, yeah, very, very important. Please continue.
Yeah, sure. Um, Sorry for the delay here.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you clear.
My computer just did something funny.
Okay, no problem.
And
I'm reading you. I'm just checking. Yeah, everything's clear on my side. We've actually got very good reception.
okay, wonderful. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, one of the things you mentioned to me before is that people finding their purpose, and that's a big thing that I mentioned in my book. We use different things to distract us from what it is that would fulfill us on this earth. And we're all actually searching, whether we realize it or not, for that thing that's going to make us happy. And it might not be anything, major. For each person, that little something is different. And I also expanded in the book how when we're young, when we're children, we very much know what our heart desires, what we love to do. And then as we grow up, we get conditioned. Our mind gets conditioned. This is how we're supposed to look. This is what we should be doing. If you do that, you're not going to make money. And so we go along this path, and we're no longer in touch with you could say our God self, or what our purpose is on this earth. And for me, food was a distraction. It was this feeling like I don't really know what I want to do, where I should be, but let me eat something, or let me diet, and that was my focus. And when we put for eating, if you put your eating in its place, and you stop focusing on it and think to yourself, like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And this is, let me just actually face this. Let me start digging deeper, and it's a slow process. But if we don't start that, we just keep on using different things to distract us. I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah, definitely it is. Definitely it is. Because it's the whole approach. I mean, so many times I hear people, they want to go on this diet and that diet, and it's that whole yo-yo syndrome which you spoke about. And I find that it's so much more detrimental, because
Yes.
like what you said earlier on in your own words, people become so conscious and they just can't be themselves. And it's a horrible thing that society is so conditioned. They're not even aware of it, Bronwyn.
Yes, they aren't. And then as soon as they get that new diet, it's like new hope. And then it's like, and then they've got the beautiful book that goes with it, and the tablets, or whatever it is, the shakes, and it's, and then that becomes their new focus. And then for a while they do feel good about themselves, but they haven't got to the core.
And it's so beautiful what you said in your book about my explanation, my interpretation of it is to be mindful, the mindfulness.
Yes.
It's to really connect to what I call the heavenly consciousness of everything, of the way we eat and the way we express ourselves, the way we talk, the way we even drink our water.
Yes, becoming aware of everything, of the little things. And that's very much what, in the book, I talk about the self-love, because we've got to start from the point of having self-love, and and I also go into some examples of how people say that they love themselves, but then they don't. They carry on, especially women, where they torture themselves by maybe wearing clothes that are too small for them, just to remind themselves that they're too fat, instead of wearing things that will make them feel good about themselves. So you've got to do all those little things that show yourself that you love yourself. And then with the eating, using mindfulness techniques when you eat. And that's a lot of what I do in the workshops that I run on mindful eating, where we actually practice eating. And it seems silly that people need to learn how to eat, but we have forgotten. We eat on the run, we eat while we're working at our computer, we drink coffee, tea, whatever it is, and we don't actually take time to just focus on our meals. And it's not so much about what food you're eating, although down the line, as you become more in touch with your body, you can fine-tune the types of foods that you're eating. But it starts with any food that you are eating, just take the time to eat it properly and to enjoy it. And if you enjoy the food that you're eating, you're less likely to overeat.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to eat. I mean, if you're eating while you're working, you don't even notice that you've eaten. The next thing you think, like, oh, I feel like something nice, or I feel like something else. And then you're constantly picking on food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even when people diet, they're often looking for what are the free foods, the foods that we can eat all the time. And you can lose weight by munching food all the time, but it's not a good habit to be in, to constantly be nibbling on something. You still, eventually you get bored of those carrot sticks and all of those things, and you start munching on chocolates all the time because you haven't broken that habit of needing to have something either in your hands or in your mouth. Whether it's from anxiety or whatever the emotional reason is behind that.
Yeah. And Bronwen, you know what? Through the years, I'm nearly in my 50s, yeah. So I've seen through time that the majority, men in general, I'm going to say this on air, men in general don't like very, very skinny, skin and bone women. No
yes.
chance. It's nice to be with a woman who is not that skin and bone. That really, that's what I've seen through statistics, my own research, because obviously through the years I've researched different things. But I find that the men that complain about their women's figure is the guys that have got issues with their own body. I don't know if you've come across that.
Yes, it does often happen, and then they project their own unhappiness onto their partner or onto their girlfriends. That does often happen.
Yeah,
and you're right. Men do generally prefer women with a bit more substance.
In myself speaking, I feel it's sexy, it's beautiful, but when they very, very skinny and it's just, I don't know, it's just off-putting. But and a lot of men that are listening, I'm sure, will agree. But with regards to your workshops, when are those happening?
The next workshop is in July. I need to confirm. I think it's the 12th of July.
Sure.
It's on a Saturday. We actually I'm just confirming with the venue at the moment, either the 12th, I think, or the 19th. I need to look at a calendar. But the workshop is run at Gusto Cafe in Cape Town, City Bowl. And then in a couple of months' time, I'm going to be running one in Johannesburg also. I'm also just finalizing the venues there. But if you go onto my website, there'll be updates.
Yeah.
And exact dates and times.
It's the www.ilovefood.co.za.
Right.
And then your book they can purchase from the website or...
Yes, they can go through the website. They can either email me directly to order. Internationally, it's available. There's a link on the website where people can buy it internationally. And then it's also available on Kindle.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And then, the normal thing, I've been to workshops, we all go to workshops, we all experience different workshops, but do people get a support system if they're having a problem after the workshop? Is that available?
Yes, it's open. Yeah, people can contact me anytime after the workshop. We explore a lot in the workshop. So it's a one-day workshop from 9:30 until 4. But we cover so much that people often need time to just process what we've gone through. I go through like a little workbook. So we do a lot of exercises, practical things. And when people go away, they need to go and practice those exercises on their own. And then, yes, people are always welcome to contact me afterwards, because also there's some things that they don't think of asking at the workshop, and only once they've experienced it themselves or tried doing the exercise, they realize, they have these questions. So yes.
No, I do the same as well. I offer that support because firstly it's important. It's a bit impossible to cover everything, and people's questions normally do arise after the workshop. So that's brilliant to hear. Now, what happens in the case with women that have given birth, say, to twins, and they're having all this extra weight and all of that? They can come to your workshops. It's for everyone, eh?
Yes, it's for everyone. The last workshop, there's actually the owner of the restaurant, Tom. He came to the last workshop, and I was a bit, it's the first time I'd had a man join in the workshop. But he also had eating issues, but his were more on the side of not nurturing himself enough, not eating when he should be eating, drinking, living on caffeine, wanting the a caffeine fix to keep him going. And he benefited hugely from coming to the workshop because he said, now he's actually listening to his body and eating when he's hungry instead of having another cup of coffee just to carry him over. So it was interesting to have a male there. And then I've had a couple of other requests from men come to the workshops. So a lot of men they're not as open about talking about their weight and their issues around food, but it is for men and women.
You know what I'm finding more so nowadays is that men are more open to understanding themselves, getting in touch with themselves. Because there's this whole balance in the universe happening with the masculine and feminine, and it's got nothing to do with sexuality. It's just the masculine and feminine within people is just becoming more balanced.
More balanced.
Some turmoil and everything because people want the stability. So it's just a reflection of what's going on inside. But I'm finding more and more men are actually saying, I want to know what chakras are. I want to know what energy is. I want to know why my brain actually functions like it. It's more the metaphysical stuff. It's like what you're offering from the metaphysical approach. And it's beautiful. So you're definitely going to be seeing more and more men coming through, which is quite amazing. I think the women need to also push the guys too. There's a lot of...
Yes, I actually have a client who keeps on saying to me, she really thinks her husband needs to come to my workshop, but she doesn't know if she can get him there because he's probably in his mid-60s. So he's from that era where it's like, men don't talk about these kinds of... and he's definitely an emotional eater.
But also for the international listeners, what we call in South Africa belly boop, which means, it's a beer boop. It's the belly that hangs over from all the beer that the guys drink at cricket and stuff. But please, let's go back to, so you started this journey. It must have been tough because, did you have the support system growing up as a child? Or was it...
Not really. My parents, I had very young parents. So, my mom often said to me, Bronwyn, I don't actually know how to be a parent. This is the first time I'm doing this. So there wasn't a lot of support. And also when we moved, I had a very close bond with my gran. And then we moved and I moved away from her. So that was also my sort of support that I felt, my emotional support that had gone. But when I left school and I started this process of self-discovery, it was various people that I met, and it wasn't the conventional route because I had gone to see dietitians and psychologists and things like that, and it wasn't really the answers that I was looking for. And I read a book called The Diet Alternative, which is, I think it was written in the 80s, and I also mention it in my book. And this woman wrote about eating from a Christian perspective, and she sort of went into the Bible and how they ate in the old days, where in the Bible days, where they would eat in the morning, and then they wouldn't eat during the day because they would be busy with their daily activities. And then they would eat again in the evening, when they all got back together again as a family. And, food wasn't their focus throughout the day like it is for a lot of people today. So basically it was fasting, and it was through, and then she spoke about how when you fast, it strengthens your spirit. If you connect with God or the universe, whatever your belief system is, it just helps to strengthen you, and you're less inclined to lean on food and eating. And it was that basic practice of just eating in the morning, learning what hunger felt like, and then only eating in the evening again, that I got in touch with my body and I started to develop more spiritually. And then, when you're not eating all the time, that's when all the emotional things start to come out.
Yeah.
And it was, trying to have that self-control, not to always reach for food when these certain emotions were arising.
Mm-hmm.
And that took years. It wasn't, that's why I said there's no quick fix, and for each person the journey will be different. But in my book I explain the fast that I did that helped me.
Yeah.
But and I fasted like on and off, I would say, for 2 or 3 years, and now my eating pattern is very different. But I'm very much more aware of my body and its needs, so I don't need to be, I don't need to stick to that same way of eating. That is the key, is actually knowing what to do with feelings when they arise, when you've been used to eating every time you have a feeling that you don't like to feel. And and also learning that it's okay to feel, because often we're scared to allow feelings to come out because you're worried what all is going to come out with it. And when you realize, no, but if you do feel it and you allow yourself to feel it, it's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. And then, also I would do a lot of self-talk and say, all right, okay, if I'm going to allow this feeling to come out, and if I still want to eat something afterwards, then I can. And often you don't want to. The energy has sort of been released and you don't need to eat.
Yeah. And don't you feel that lack of feeling is because of society? I mean, there's just so much conditioning. It happens like, boom, from the minute that baby's popped out, it's like, oh, I mean, I've heard parents say, I wish it's a healthy child and it's does sport. I mean, it's like a weak.
They push the child in a certain direction or in a certain, certainly. We don't allow our children much freedom. And then also, I mean, I have a 7-year-old daughter now, and so I'm exposed to a lot of parents and children, and parents fill their children's time with so much. If it's not at home, with TV games, all sorts of things, we're distracting children all the time. And then at school, you want them to do an activity on each day of the week, so they don't get a chance to just explore themselves and just play fairy games or whatever, imaginative games. And it's not surprising that children are also battling with obesity a lot more now, because they're not really conscious. They're not conscious of most of their life because they're busy all the time. They're not, and eating just falls into that category also, where they eat in front of the TV, they eat while playing TV games, they eat while on their cell phone, whatever it is. They're just not aware anymore.
And it's also what's important, I found, Bronwyn, because I actually did a test years ago on myself, and I wanted to lose whatever because I was doing sport internationally and professionally, and I needed to lose a couple of kilos. And what I did is I just started chewing my food to, like what you said, to a paste in your book there, and I would consciously take an hour a day and de-stress, and my metabolism just increased. And I actually managed to even perform better. So for the sports people out there, it's about balance, it's about rest, it's about getting in touch with yourself. Well, for everyone, huh?
Yes, definitely. I mean, even like you say, the rest, getting enough sleep. People, if you're working until late, your brain is in that state of activity, and then you can't rest at night, and then you can't sleep properly, or you don't sleep deeply enough. You wake up. That's also going to mess around with your appetite, and your body signals. So you'll end up eating sugary things to try and keep you going through the day because you're actually tired, and then your whole body's balance goes out. And eventually your weight goes out. So I'm not surprised that your metabolism improved when you were just de-stressing and getting everything in balance.
And even my output and my performance was phenomenal, and even my muscles were dressed a lot quicker. But obviously that says it for that. But I wanted to ask you, the picture that you've got. It's a beautiful yoga stance that you've got there. I mean, look at it now. So are you teaching professionally? I mean, doing it, teaching, or are you just doing the classes?
I teach Pilates. That is a yoga move, you're right, on the photograph. I practice yoga, And I'm also a shiatsu practitioner, which is acupressure massage therapy. That gave me, the insight that I have into the Eastern philosophies and the Chinese medicine, which I found really useful. But yes, the yoga, I'm actually in the process of applying to do a yoga course because I want to start teaching yoga.
Yeah. And Pilates, how important has that been in moving you to, how much of an influence, I should rather say, has that had in your life?
I've always loved exercise and movement. I'm terrible at sports. I've got no coordination. But I've always liked going to gym classes through school. And when I left school, I was actually working in the IT industry. I was working as a computer programmer, and then I went into web design. And then I was incredibly unhappy. But, through all of this, my eating, I had started to gain control of my eating. So it wasn't through doing Pilates or doing yoga that it helped me gain control of my eating. That was something that was more of the spiritual journey. But I decided I wanted to do something that was more active and dealing more with people. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got into fitness training first, and then studied Pilates and shiatsu and, more alternative healing modalities. And that's also when I realized that I wanted to write my book on my journey with food, because I was working at a gym and I was doing a lot of fitness assessments, and I would come into contact with specifically women that would say, "Oh, I want to lose this," and they would tug on their arms or tug on their tummy, like absolute hatred in their eyes, and and then I would talk to them more and realize, that they're, that's just like I said, a distraction. There's other issues at play, and also when you're training people privately, you get to know them very well. So, and the more I dealt with people, the more I realized, no, there's really a need for me to write this book with all my ideas in. So I'd say for the last 10 years, I've been writing my book. So people, when I finally published it, said, "Wow, you've actually finally done it. You've been talking about it for so long."
Oh, no, congratulations. I found it extremely inspiring for people that are lost, confused, that not sure what to do. It's really, you've got so many important messages in your book. So a very important gift to society. Huh? Definitely.
My goal with the book, even though it's taken me so long to write, people said, "Wow, it's so short." And I would say, if I had finished it about 4 years ago, it would have been about 3 times the length. And when I wrote it, I wanted people to read it and feel what I was trying to tell them, and not have to make notes and have a workbook type of thing. I wanted people to absorb through reading and learn through reading, and I'm happy with the end result of the book.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah, I want people to be able to sit down in 2 hours and read it and feel like it's spoken to them. And yeah.
Well, I read it. I was flying down to Cape Town on the plane. I didn't want to put it down. It was like, it's time to learn, and I was like, oh damn, I need to finish this book.
Thank you, that's great.
It is. It's written so well. It's so beautiful. But it's something that you said that's very, very important. What you said about, it doesn't matter how much exercise you are doing, because I found that with people, they'll do the exercise even when they get to the physique that they are in, they're still unhappy, and the important stuff is what's happening inside. Doesn't matter how sculpted the body is or how shaped it is. It's going back to the self-love, what you said earlier on. So that's a very, very important one. And then with regards to just coming back to the bulimia,
yes.
Because that is in a way self-destructive, because it's I need to change, and it's really not a healthy process, but there are obviously factors about why people do it. So how did that come about? When did you decide this is actually what I want to do?
Sorry, when did what come about?
The bulimia. Did you say you went through a bulimia episode?
Yes, I did, through my high school days.
Yeah. And how did that start? Was it just one day you decided, well, this is what I'm going to do? Was it someone who suggested it to you?
Um, it was probably after dieting for about a year.
Yeah.
Um, I just didn't have control. Like my binges were getting worse, and it was stressing because I was so conscious of my weight and putting on weight that I was stressing about, now I'm binging. How am I going to get rid of the food? Because I couldn't control the binges. And binges, it's not just eating a bit too much. It's almost like it's like a blackout where you're eating beyond full, and you're eating whatever you can find to eat. And I started with the laxatives, and then I also started actually getting sick to try and get rid of the food. But it was purely like a stress response to, like, okay, damn, I've binged, I've done too much. If I don't get rid of this food, I'm going to be so fat. And the first step for me, when I probably on and off did this for about 4 years, realizing that was really affecting my health badly. A lot of women die from bulimia. And then I realized that I had to face the consequences of my binging. That if I was going to binge, the first step was to actually stop trying to get rid of the food. I had to deal with the fact that if I ate too much, I was going to get fat. And that's when I started putting on a lot of weight. And for a lot of people, I got teased a lot about putting on weight. People can be really mean. And, in myself, I kept on thinking to myself, no, but I'm actually getting better. They don't realize what I've been going through up until now. This is actually a step in healing. And yeah, like I said, by the time I left school, I was probably about 20 kilograms overweight. And it took me about a year or maybe 2 years to lose that weight, which is quite a long time. People that are wanting to lose weight that are 20 kilograms overweight, you tell them, well, it'll take you 2 years. They'll be like, no way, that's too long. But the point is, once I lost that weight, I never ever put it back on again.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's so you have to be losing weight with the right intent, should I say.
And it's it's so interesting. We had a girl at our school. I wouldn't mention her name on air, but I can't even remember. So many years ago. But shame, she went through the same experience, but it got to a point where, literally, she was almost skin and bone, and she still believed she was overweight.
Yes, yeah, it's frightening, and it's in their mind that is the reality.
And are parents able to pick that up? Because it's a lot don't, eh? Everyone's caught up in their own world.
Yes.
Do you find that you're able to give advice or share insight with parents that maybe have realized or maybe not even aware that their child's going through it?
I haven't dealt with a lot of parents because I'm not a counselor. So I'm always very clear when I'm dealing with people that I'm not a counselor. And if there's like deep things that they need to discuss, then they must go and speak to a counselor. It's my role is very much just giving the tools to make people aware of where they need to look, where their problem areas are, and just to help them embark on that journey of discovery. And with mothers, I could give them things that they could look for, more because I know from my own experience, but then guide them as to who they need to speak to.
Yeah, because with us, the only reason why we picked it up is because after break, she would go eat. We'd all be socializing during our school break, and then 5 or 10 minutes before the break ended, or even 15, she would go to the bathroom and then come back with these very puffy, bloodshot eyes. and we would think, okay, maybe she's drinking or something.
Yeah.
And we only discovered much later that she would actually go and to throw up, which it was good in the sense where all her friends gave her the support. I mean, at that age, at like what 15, 16, you just actually you're not too aware of what you can do and what you can't do. But it, I must say, it was quite an eye opener, that one. And then any philosophy regarding for the people that are struggling. There are going to be people that are going to listen to this podcast. It will be loaded up on both websites and also on my website as well. But any sort of words of encouragement that you can say, hey, it's okay. Because I found with this specific person, she was so hard on herself. And I mean, literally cracking almost A's for every subject. She still believed she wasn't good enough.
Yes, yeah. They're often, people with eating disorders are often perfectionists. They're striving for this perfection that is sort of unobtainable.
Yeah.
The main thing is to know that, to become aware that there is a problem. You know, through awareness comes change. So if you can look at yourself and see, actually, I do have a problem with my eating. And then secondly, not to, sometimes people refer to it as my eating disorder. They sort of take ownership of it. It becomes this thing, and it's not. It's just something that you're going through, and that there is a way out, and it might take a few months, it might take a few years, I remember speaking to a woman at Weight Watchers because I wanted to help out there. And she said, you just have to face it, that you will always have an eating disorder. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, no, that's wrong. You're not always going to. You can decide whether you're going to or not. And for me, I can honestly say I don't have an eating disorder. So to know that you don't have to have it forever just because you have it now, no matter what people say to you. Mm-hmm. And that it's also, in a way, it's a gift, because it's there to teach you something about yourself. Yeah. And once you go through that process, you'll be a much better person on the other side because of that journey.
Yeah. And you know what's quite so interesting? The minute people start to love and appreciate themselves, the resonance, because I mean, I'll do aura work and I read chakras and auras and their holographic energies and all of that. So it's quite anyway. But yes. the minute they go into that love space, or they create that space, the energy shifts, the stresses disappear, and yes. It's so important, because I know that you emphasize on the love and appreciation of ourselves. And yes. The bodies and the food when we put into it. And that's an important factor, because a lot of people just ignore the aspects of the self-love.
Yes, I mean, that is so important. I mean, that's actually the key. If we love ourselves and we try and project that feeling of love to those around us, and then like you said, the appreciation, that is so important. So appreciating your food, you're not appreciating your food if you're eating while you're working. So if you can just remind yourself of that each day, just to love and appreciate. I mentioned in the book, the Masaru Emoto's books, the Hidden Messages in Water, where he goes into great depths about that. The effects of love and appreciation, just the words love and appreciation on the water crystals, and how beautiful it makes the water crystals, and the fact that we are 65 to 70% water, that it could have a similar effect on us. Mm. And that is just such a strong message.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what you said earlier on as well, because I always have the philosophy of 90% is awareness of our healing, self-healing. 90% is awareness, 10% is what am I going to do. But exactly. the reason how I got to that, and which I have mentioned on air, and I'll mention it again, is that society's conditioned society to believe that it's actually 90% work, 10% awareness, which is totally wrong.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, that is the kind of world that we're living in at the moment. We're not very aware. We spoke about earlier about all the distractions that we have. But yes, if we can just focus on becoming more aware, it would help transform so much.
Yeah. And then so do you find like in your workshop that you get people that don't need to lose weight still come?
Yeah, some people, I mean, you look at them and you actually wouldn't say that they have an eating problem. But yes, and they might feel that they need to lose weight, and it's specifically women. You know, like you say, women can look quite healthy, but in their own eyes, they see themselves as needing to lose. The big number is always 5 kilograms. I just need to lose 5 kilograms.
Yeah. But it's about that 5 number. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't looked into it. I've heard it so many times through the years, but what is it? I mean, why 5?
Yes, yeah, why not 6 or 7? Yes, but it's always that 5 years. So there are people that come, and also there's some people that I've invited just so that they could know what the workshop is about, and they've come to the workshop thinking that it's not applicable to them, and realize actually, you know, there's a lot that's applicable
Mm.
to them. And it's the same with the book. You know, I've had a few people just that have come back to me on reading the book to say, wow, they started reading it thinking, you know, well, I don't have an eating disorder, or I don't have eating problems. And then through reading it, realize actually there's a lot of things that they weren't aware that they were doing to themselves.
Yeah,
And
no,
help
definitely.
see things a bit differently.
Yeah, but it's also a mind frame, wouldn't you say, Bronwyn?
Yes.
Mindset, because I'll tell you what I did years ago, because for me, years and years ago, I'd always do different experiments on my body, take this, alternative product or something that I would make and down the whole bottle, and, you know, what is it doing to me? Obviously, it's stuff that I make, and just to see what my body, so I'm like this crazy metaphysical.
Doing experiments on yourself.
Yeah, but what I found was, when I said to myself, okay, fine, I'm going to eat junk for a week, literally junk food, like rubbish, total, utter,
Like a
disgusting.
supersize me type experiment.
Yeah, and I said to myself, I'm not going to gain any weight whatsoever. I did it the first week, and I went into the second week, and I conditioned myself to say, I'm actually going to lose weight. And, you know, I lost 3 kilos.
Oh, really?
And people were, it's insane. How could you be eating, you know, a loaf of bread at a day with all the other stuff? But I wanted to see what is the human potential.
Yes, that's
And
amazing.
it goes back to what you said. Is the conditioning is like
Yes,
people get programmed, and
yes.
yeah.
There was actually something just on what you've spoken about now. There was an interesting article that I read the other day where they've actually proven that your perception of the food will affect how your body digests that food. They're proving exactly what you said. So if somebody is sitting down with a healthy meal, but they're looking at it thinking this is going to destroy my body, their body's not going to digest it properly, and it isn't going to use the nutrients properly. Whereas if somebody sits down with a burger and their perception is this is going to nourish each cell of my body, the digestive juices will flow better, and the enzymes will break the food down better, and the body will use that food better, and they are less inclined to put on weight because of their outlook. So
Yeah.
it's been proven scientifically.
And then do you have parents coming to you, or people that come and say to you, I'm very, very hungry, but I'll end up playing with my food? Because I mean, I've met people that they'll be starving, and then they'll eat a bit, and eventually you find out that there is a disorder there, and then they start to play with their food. I find children, as in the sense of teenagers,
Yes.
obviously they go through this whole body awareness and all of that, but do you find any of them come forward and say, you know, this is what I'm doing, you know, what?
I can't. You know, I've had people say that they're not listening to their hungry and full signals, basically, which I suppose is the same as that. You know, whatever the thing is that they're doing that is making them not listen to their body. You know, whether it's playing with their food or just not eating when they should be eating. Yes, but I mean that is a common thing in the clinics, and that where they have to try and get the girls to actually focus on their meals instead of, you know, trying to distract themselves and avoid eating certain things.
Yeah. And for I know with a friend of mine I'm talking years ago, they actually took their child to one of these clinics and basically she was locked in there for, I don't know, a month or 5 weeks. I can't remember, but it's just a couple of weeks. And all the doctors wanted to do was just pump them with chemicals and open the appetite. And I'm like, what the heck for? It's just rather look at what are the issues. Yeah, it adds more stress to the body, to the digestion, the immune system, to their whole psyche, because now they feel they've been pushed aside. And I just found it made the issue worse for this young person.
Yes, I think the trauma that they go through.
Exactly, it is trauma. And then, Bronwyn, any other aspects that you feel that is important to convey that we haven't touched on, regarding this? Because I am going to ask you about shiatsu, because I get a lot of people that say, what is, that people ask you this. But yeah, pertaining to your book, your workshops,
yes.
website.
With there's I get a lot of questions about different exercise modalities and body therapies. What's better? Is this one better? And it's all just like with the eating, where we all need to find what kind of eating works for us. Is it eating 6 meals a day, eating 2 meals a day, whatever, finding that balance that works for you. It's the same with exercise and energy healing. It's like I enjoy Pilates, I enjoy running, I surf, I do a whole lot of things, but that's not for everybody. And with you get a lot of people, my whole philosophy is not forcing yourself to do things that you hate just to get the end result. It's about loving the process. So, and listening to yourself enough and becoming aware so that you can find those things that you love doing. So if you just like walking in the mountain, then, that's enough to start with. It doesn't mean that's what you're always going to do, but that's enough for now. So it's the baby steps. And also a lot of people will embark on an exercise program and a diet and eating program all at once, trying to do too much at once. And, my advice to that is just tackle one little thing at a time. Don't try and do too much at once.
Yeah. And then this hunger, not hunger signals?
That it's funny, like even people that say that they don't have eating problems, once they start listening to the signals, they realize that they've either been under-eating or overeating. That's where I said that the fasting helped me, because I knew that like if I didn't eat, I would only eat breakfast when I actually became hungry. And then I realized I was just waking up and eating because that's what you do. You wake up and you eat breakfast. But if I waited, then I realized, okay, no, this is what hungry feels like. And if you eat when you're hungry, then you're also less inclined to overeat because you're more aware of your body sensations. So then you're more aware of when you're getting full. And just that simple practice can make huge changes in your life. Only eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full.
Yeah, definitely. And then your shiatsu, how did that come about? When did that start?
I became very interested when I got into fitness training. I found a book on Chinese medicine, and their philosophies and the way they explained the body, it just spoke to me. And then I just started looking for things that I could learn that would teach me more about Chinese medicine, and that led me to shiatsu, because shiatsu is basically it's like acupuncture without the needles. And as far as the theory of Chinese medicine, they have something called the 5 elements, which is categories for different organs in the body, but then they also look at it from an emotional point of view. So they look at the emotional connections between the various organs in the body and the emotions that we experience, both positive and negative. so for instance, sadness, they relate to the fire element, which relates to the heart. And we experience sadness. We often experience sadness in the chest, and like the liver relates to the emotion, the negative emotion, anger. And it's interesting how, a lot of the time when people drink, that has an effect on the liver, and a lot of the time anger comes out.
Yeah.
South
African, yeah.
So it's just, it made so much sense the way they explained that, and I hadn't found anything that explained the connection between the body and the emotions like that. So that led me to shiatsu. And it's interesting when I do shiatsu therapy and I'm speaking to somebody and they will give me, they'll say, oh, this is unrelated to, that the specific ailment that they came to me for. And I'll say, no, nothing is unrelated. Yeah. You can draw a full picture from everything. So if you've got a headache and a pain in your leg, there might be a connection between them. And it's just a beautiful way of looking at the body and the energetic body.
And then from a shiatsu point of view, because I've got a question here, from a shiatsu point of view, what organ or organs are connected to eating disorders, if any?
It's the earth elements, and the stomach and the spleen are grouped with the earth element. And it's interesting, the earth element, because it doesn't just, they explain people's constitutions also according to the 5 elements. So some, we all have a blend of the 5 elements within us, but some people will just lean more towards one of the elements than the others. And often people with eating problems and eating disorders, they fall under the earth element, and that has to do with our taking in of nourishment. So, your stomach receives the food and the spleen is responsible for transforming that food. And then the thing that made a lot of sense to me is that people that consume a lot, it's not just food, it's also information or experiences, but they're never quite nourished by that information or those experiences, so they're immediately needing more. And it's just a common character trait of earth element type people. Yeah. And it also has to do with our connection with this earth, where when we're born, our connection, most times our connection is with our mother and through her feeding us. And and later our connecting with this earth is through eating. Food comes from the earth. So it's this, when that earth element is out of balance, we might find we need to eat more to try and create that connection. And also the negative emotion in the earth element is anxiety. And a lot of us eat out of anxiety. It's that constant, that needing something to chew on, to nibble on.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because from my research, the spleen, which is also connected to self-sabotage. So, yeah, that's what I find in the resonance of when I'm working with people. There's indicators within the spleen going on, which those self-sabotages sit on the outer part of the causal body, is usually 99.9% connected to self-sabotage issues. And then that's when I start saying, okay, where is the self-abuse? And then they totally say, I don't have self-abuse. And then I say, okay, well, are you a smoker? Yeah. How many do you smoke a day? 35 cigarettes a day. Well, the self-abuse, they can't see it. No, they don't identify with it. And it's just, again, reinforces how society is just conditioned. But it is falling away. I'm seeing a lot of people, and more so this year than ever before, saying and questioning and saying, what is it about myself that I need to fix or change or make better?
People are becoming more aware.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. And then with people that are suffering bulimia, then obviously if they're throwing things up, there's acidity.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
No. I thought you were going in one direction, but you were going in another. But sorry, just repeat the question.
So yeah, so that's obviously it creates in a way chemical imbalances. It must do, because you just removing everything that your body was supposed to be digesting.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you're depleting your body of of nutrients, of enzymes, so it creates further imbalances.
Yeah, and I mean for folks that if your child is bulimic, or you know someone, or you are, it's quite a serious thing. I mean, I've watched years and years ago. I watched a documentary where a person just eventually just died. I mean, it was just
Yes, yeah. Because I
horrible.
mean, they also, like you said, they will become malnourished. I mean, that is another important thing for parents if they are trying to help their children or their child overcome an eating disorders to give them supplements, get them assessed by a nutritional therapist or nutritionist to see where their deficiencies are, because otherwise it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle where they're malnourished, so they feel horrible about themselves.
Mm.
And then because they feel horrible, they use food or not eating as a way of dealing with that. And then as a result, they are more undernourished. So if you can just give them some sort of supplement, to help to just re-nourish their bodies, it might help the body chemistry to work better
Yeah.
and to uplift their thinking.
Mm. And also, I mean, if the one person in a relationship is having, a thyroid problem, whatever. I mean, I've met a couple years ago where the husband was, I mean, they were just so in love with each other, and the wife had the confidence to say he accepts me. Doesn't matter that she was like 40, 45 kilos overweight, but I mean,
Yes,
they had literally the best relationships, the best sex life. They had this beautiful, amazing relationship, and I would sit back and functions and look at them and look at the people around, and I'd say they just beam. And obviously easy for me because of reading energies, but yet the people that are this ideal weight were actually depressed with each other as partners. So it doesn't mean that if a person's overweight, this is how I've seen it.
that they're unhappy.
Yeah, that they're unhappy, because I mean I have met people that accept themselves and they're happy, and just do what they need to do, and that's it. So
Like you say, it's the perception that they
yeah,
have, their outlook. Yeah, that plays a huge role.
yeah. And then I mean for me, whenever I come across very amazing, interesting people like yourself, I always say, this is what, like your book, this is what should go into schools.
Yes,
You,
thank you.
you look
Yeah.
at that, have you considered that?
It is actually one of the areas that I want to explore because obviously because my experience was during my school years, and I've thought, I actually have a client that's in her 70s, and she's been binge eating for a long time, and it's so ingrained in her, and it's so difficult for her to change, even though I spend a lot of time talking to her, and I think, if she's wasted so many years focusing on her weight and her food, but now it's almost, I feel like it's too late. Whereas if girls could be released from this in their school years, it would just free up so much time and energy so that they can focus on the important things in life. So I definitely do want to get into the schools and start talking to the girls, specifically in high school when they start to become more self-conscious
Mm.
and aware of their bodies and weight.
Because that's very important. I mean, we had an ex-biker that came and gave a chat to people about his drugging and everything, and a lot of the kids were like, "Oh, this is fantastic! I can actually go and speak to someone."
Yes, I can
And I'm just
relate.
talking about in the 80s, and the 70s, and there wasn't this thing. It was too taboo of a subject, and funny enough, back then, if anyone spoke about weight issues, no one wanted to talk about it.
Yes.
There was just so many kids overweight, so it's a good thing for, obviously people are more open nowadays, but it's so important, eh?
Yes,
So,
yes, just
and then,
to help them at the start of the problem rather than.
yeah, no, definitely. And then Bronwyn, do you give talk about the schools and stuff, but do you go out into the communities and say, here, listen to me, this is what I've got, or do you just wait for people to rather approach you?
Up until now, it's more been people approaching me, and I've spent a lot of energy just getting my book published and out there, so it's still in its early stages. So I pretty much wanted to get my book published before I started getting more involved in the community. So I'm busy working with somebody now who's quite involved with the clinics and the eating disorder clinics. And yeah, that is my intention, is to go out more into the community and into the schools.
Yeah.
So I'd say the next part of this year is all about that.
Because also, I mean, it's what you're really doing is which I find is so powerful and so liberating. You're actually allowing people to do their self, I call it self-activated healing. That self-awareness, that are understanding, analyzing themselves and saying, you know, I can actually do this myself. Because I find a lot of people that are overweight, it's to get them to initially start. And the minute they start losing that weight naturally in a healthy way, then it's like they've got this motivation. But I find a lot of people lack that motivation to say, oh, but it's them, I can't do it myself, etc., etc. Do you
exactly.
that?
That is, I'm actually very clear when I speak to people. I say, I'm not going to give you the answers. You're going to find the answers yourself. I'm just going to give you an idea of where you can look. Because that is the thing, you know, if people come to you and they're expecting you to give them help, exactly, they'll blame you when it doesn't turn out that way. And they need to take responsibility. If they don't take responsibility, then there's not going to be any change. And I mean, for me, it was like that. I had to realize, you know, like I said, if I'm going to eat too much, I'm going to put on weight, and nobody's making me eat that food. I'm doing it to myself.
Yeah, and then also where you said you were traveling to different places. I mean, that must have been quite an adjustment for you, hey?
It was. I realized that was a lot of my insecurity, is always changing homes. I mean, I'm now 36, and I've probably lived in more than 40 different homes. So it's, you know, the averages are not quite good. So, and I know that now. I know that played a big role in why I was so distracted, or I used food as a distraction.
And family, because you said you stayed with your gran for a while, eh?
Yes, my mom had me when she was very young, so my gran looked after me for the first few years of my life, and then my parents actually ended up getting married, got back together and got married. But my mom and dad were 19 when they had me, so they were still children themselves, still teenagers. And so that's why my gran was my sort of stability. But, you know, growing up, I love my parents very much, and I have a good relationship with both of them now. And I also understand where they were coming from, because I think of myself when I was 19, 20, and there's no ways I would have been able to look after a child. So I have an understanding and a respect for what they still managed to do for me. But at the time, it was, you know, feeling, you know, looking at other people, and all teenagers do that. They look at what other kids' parents do and what other kids get, and you think, you know, my family isn't that good.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and now I'm grateful for the family that I have, because they gave me a lot of things that other kids didn't get.
Yeah. No, it's very, very important. And you know what? The lessons and the experiences, I know I spoke about this with a couple of my other guests, and it's, you know, it's hard when one is going through an experience or a lesson, but when we look back, we say, thank goodness I managed to go through that, and I really achieved it, although if one thought that they were going through failure. But we always gain, and the universe will never just throw something that we're not ready for.
That you can't handle, exactly. And it forces you to grow. Growth isn't always pain-free, but yeah, it's worth it in the end. Yeah, I don't regret anything in my past. You know, I've had a lot of I'd say difficult experiences, but there's no regrets. And
landing up in Cape Town, or did you decide that? Because I mean, Cape Town is so beautiful.
It is.
Overseas listeners, it is an amazing place.
Yes. I mean, right now I'm actually looking at Table Mountain as I'm talking to you. I'm so lucky.
Don't mention it, please.
Yes.
But your decision to just say, okay, that's it, I'm staying in Cape Town.
It actually, when we first moved from East London, we lived in Somerset West, and I was incredibly depressed. I hated Somerset West, which is not far from Cape Town. You know, and my dad was always saying, but we've got the sea, we've got the mountains, it's beautiful. And I was always, no, but it's not East London. And I hated the winters in Cape Town. But then when we left Somerset West, we moved to Durban, and then came back to Cape Town. Then I appreciated it more. And then I moved to the City Bowl in Cape Town. And I realized, okay, if we had moved to the City Bowl, I might have appreciated Cape Town more, because I just enjoy the energy in Cape Town.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was there was 2 weeks ago, and the energy's definitely shifted. And there's more of a buzz in the air. I really thoroughly enjoyed, even going out to Paarl and the Wellington side. There's definitely been a shift in consciousness, and definitely a shift in the earth there. And then with regards to your gran and food, I mean, was there, you know how grans are? I mean,
my gran was actually, she gave me my first diet. I don't like to say that because she did it with good intentions.
Okay.
But because she was very conscious of her weight. My grandfather actually, my mom's dad, so it was my gran's husband, they were from Northern Rhodesia.
Okay.
They lived in Northern Rhodesia, and they had 7 children, and they ran a bakery called Woodall's Bakery. I've actually made a little video clip of photos I've got on my site, just paying tribute to him, because I never actually knew my grandfather, but he ran a very well-known bakery in Northern Rhodesia, and then they moved down to East London because he got cancer, and he was a weightlifter, and he was Scottish, so the caber tossing, very physical man, and that combined with being a confectioner, it was quite an odd combination. But my gran always said, he was always trying to get her to lift weights and do things, and she just hated it. But she liked to eat the cakes, and she obviously always had a weight problem. And then he died, leaving her with the 7 children and the bakery that they had opened up in East London, and she battled to cope with all of that. And she closed the bakery down. But all the years that I knew my gran, because then she remarried, but the years that I knew my gran, she was always on some or other diet. And for me, when I went on the first diet, I wasn't even overweight, really. But I just said to her, Gran, I want to lose some weight. And she was, had good intentions. She said, sure, try this. And she helped trying to teach me, about low-fat foods, and because it was the early 90s, the late 80s, where it was all about low-fat, high carbs. Whether it was breads or potatoes, they saw it all the same.
No, definitely.
So that was my first introduction. So, and then obviously leaving East London and my gran, I was already on that path of using diets to try and lose weight.
And then Northern Rhodesia was Zambia, huh?
Zambia, yes, that's right. So my grandfather actually made the 50th birthday cake for President Kaunda.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we've got a photograph. It's one of the photos that I have in the film clip on my blog.
So interesting. Yeah, no, I was born in what was called Rhodesia at the time.
Okay, so Zambia.
So neighbors, man. Yeah.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So and then so she basically dieted all her life, huh?
I think so. I think yes, probably, and also having 7 children, I don't think helped her body much. Not exercising, working in a bakery, and having 7 kids. It's not a recipe for a great body.
And the binging that she would do, would that obviously carried on after the sale of the bakery?
I don't think she was really a binger. She just ate. I mean, I have memories of my gran buying a 200-gram slab of chocolate on a Saturday night as a treat and eating the whole thing. She would give me a few pieces, but she just loved sweets. She landed up becoming diabetic in her later years, and she had to watch her eating a lot better. Yeah. But she had a sweet tooth.
Oh, lovely. And the discovery of your discovery of like all the information that you put in the book, was she still around when you did that, or?
She was, Shame. It's actually I dedicated the book to my gran.
Yeah.
Because I had told her over the years that I was busy writing my book. And I did speak to her a lot, and when I saw her, I would speak to her a lot. But she, in her last 10 years, she had had an aneurysm. So she had changed a bit, her memory was quite bad. But the interesting thing is when she was in hospital sort of 2 weeks before she passed away, one of the last things she said to me is, don't forget to send me your book. I want to read your book. And I hadn't finished it before she she passed away. So, she was aware of what I was writing.
And then, Bronwyn, with regards to people that decide, okay, that let me rather create the 90% awareness and the 10% of action is either coming on your workshop, getting your book, or both. Would you say things like yoga or Tai Chi, Pilates is an important factor in their lives?
If they're going to use it for the right thing, so to get more in touch with their body, then I would say yes. Because anything that helps you feel your body, experience your body is good. But if, people that come to me and say, I'm going to do Pilates because I want to lose 5 centimeters or 5 kilograms, then no, wait, or, don't come with those intentions.
Yeah.
Come with the intention of being healthier, being stronger.
So for things to nourish them while whether they're going through the process, have gone through the process, you would recommend, because I recommend the Eastern ways like the yoga and the Tai Chi.
Because of the focus also it's not just on the body, it's on the spiritual element. Yes, I mean, definitely it would help them.
Yeah, because I've seen people start, who obviously they're going to not, I mean, I've just read your book now this last month, but people that start off and then they start yoga and they want to get more in, like what you said, the balance, more in touch with their body, more in touch with themselves. And I just find they start appreciating, it's exactly what you said in your book, they start appreciating, through appreciation, obviously we get this love coming through within our psyche.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, no, then definitely, if they're coming with that intention, that is good, and it will help them.
Yeah.
Also, just feeling sometimes a bit of muscle soreness the next day makes you feel aware that you worked your body, but it's a nice kind of feeling. You feel like your muscles are developing, and also, just through exercising, sometimes your posture improves, and then from improved posture, your whole outlook improves. You open your chest, your shoulders are back, you've got less of this hanging depression in your body.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah.
Oh, no, definitely. Bronwyn de Klerk, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, John.
Pleasure. We are going to finish off with some words of wisdom from you, but just to mention your website, it's www.ilovefood.co.za. And then just to ask you, it says Verse Creative. Is this?
That is the publisher.
Oh, that's the publisher. Fantastic. And then they can get your book either from your website, the ilovefood.co.za, or they can get it in a Kindle version. It's a phenomenal. And to end off, words of wisdom, some philosophy, Eastern philosophy, anything that's from your heart space to all of us, the millions of people listening to you.
I'd say just to slowly start to clear the clutter so that you can start listening to what's inside. The answers aren't out there, that the answers are inside. They really are, and that you just need to listen and do the practices that will help you to listen better.
Yeah, and it's that mindfulness is on all levels, but always start at home, eh?
Yes, exactly. Becoming aware.
Yeah, awareness. Bronwyn de Klerk from Cape Town, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you for the beautiful gift of your book that you sent me. And we'll chat again.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, John.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.